Fish on First Live is presented by About the Fans. We've partnered with them this season on a brand new merchandise collection featuring t-shirts, polos, hats, and other accessories that Marlins fans will absolutely love. Head on over to aboutthefans.com to shop the FOF collection. Use our special coupon code FOF10 to save 10% off your order. Enter code FOF10 at checkout to save 10% and continue supporting what we do over here.
This is Griffin Conan.
This is Xavier Edwards.
This is Liam Hicks.
This is Dave Myers, and you're watching Fish on First Live.
Welcome in and welcome back to Fish on First Live, presented by our friends at About the Fans. If you guys want the hat on Eli's head or a new Dust Bus shirt, whole merch collection that dropped a couple months ago, use promo code FOF10 for 10% off at checkout. And we got a small stream, but we got a lot to talk about here, guys. I'm your host, Nate Carsman, joined by Eli Sussman and Kevin Brawl. Marlins unfortunately dropped 2 out of 3 to a tough Astros team after the highest of highs, sweep the New York Yankees. Beta 5 games set up against the division rival Atlanta Braves, who are slumping. NL wildcard race and everything in between. But I think we got to start out with this last series. Like I said, a little bit of a drop after what was an amazing series against New York. I guess we'll start game by game here. Eli, I think we got to start out on Monday. You've been very bullish on Sandy Alcantara, who enjoyed a little bit of a nice run right before the trade deadline. But really, that one getting like it's been the entire season, got him again. How would you evaluate Sandy's start on Monday?
Right. It was, yeah, in some ways it was similar to what we have seen. It's not always a big inning that gets in his way. We've seen some recent exceptions to that. This was a case where he ran into a really good Astros team that loves to swing at pitches in the zone. And with Sandy, there have been times where, because his control has sharpened up as this year's gone on, there have been times where I feel like he's overcorrected, where he's been in the zone too much. In this game, I'll double check. I don't think he walked a single batter. He was really just living in the zone the entire time. And there were a lot of at-bats here that were done in 1 or 2 pitches, and most of those did not end the way that you'd want them to. Now, we remember like peak Sandy from before his injury. That was his path to getting to complete games, is when he'd be super efficient like that, when he gets soft contact. But there was a lot of hard contact. There was 12 hard hit balls off of Sandy alone. None of them were home runs, but I'll correct myself. He was 1 walk in there. But aside from that, it threw a ton of strikes. He went through the lineup. We usually think about 3 times through a lineup being an important milestone. He went nearly 4 times through a lineup. Well, I should say like halfway through the Astros lineup for a 4th time in this one, but not for the best of reasons. So all things considered, that big inning where he allowed 5 of those 6 runs, that made the difference in this one. And with Sandy, that'll continue to be a process the rest of this year, where I think it depends a little bit on his opponents, just still not getting as much swing and miss as he ever used to. And that means that when he's throwing pitches in the zone, like, they're going to get hit hard. He's relying on his defense. And in this particular game, he just faced a lineup that was pretty locked into what he was doing. He wasn't really fooling anybody with what he was going to throw and where he was going to throw it.
Yeah, it doesn't help out when your offense doesn't do much either, of course, outside of those back-to-back pinch hit home runs from Javier Sanoja, known power hitter now, and Derek Hill coming off the IL. And that unfortunately continued in Tuesday's game. Kevin, I guess outside of another blow-up start from Cal Quantrill, your boy Jacob Marcy, first career homer, continues to shine at the big league level. Is there anything that's really surprised you so far since he's been up in the bigs, or is it more what you were expecting since you saw him, just a week ago in Jacksonville?
I think the power is a little surprising. Like, I knew he had it. I didn't think it'd translate fully to the major league level. A guy who hit 14 home runs in AAA is a guy who, extends a lot of singles into doubles, and that's just due to his speed. But yeah, I think the power's been the small surprise. He only has 1 single. The rest of his hits are for extra bases. So I'm surprised by that. I'm surprised he hasn't stolen many bases, or they weren't more aggressive in this Astros series. I think I noted this to you guys, or someone noted this on Twitter. Like, the Marlins and the Astros were the 2 teams that have allowed the most stolen bases. Marlins 1, Astros 2. I was expecting to see a lot more aggressiveness on the base paths outside of, Augustin's bad base path, bad base running in that second game. But just going back to Cal, and I know he had meant, like he said, like he felt like everything was working for him. It just wasn't his day. Like, I don't know. Like the cutter was pretty bad that day. Like didn't get any whiffs, didn't get a lot of ground balls. It was a lot of hard hit balls. Every ball put in play, I believe, was over 93, 94 miles per hour. So the average exit velo was like 96 on the cutter itself. So it was not a good day. His stuff was not working, was not getting any whiffs. So I don't know. I would disagree with his sentiment that he felt like everything was looking like it was the last month or so of play. But yes, going back to Marcy, he's been awesome. It's been impressive. I usually keep your expectations low for a lot of these prospects. Yeah, there we go. You keep a lot of your expectations low for top prospects when they're coming up to the major league level. I think that was the case for Marcy. Like, we'll see what happens. It's another guy who, he was awesome in the minor leagues, but again, minors to majors is a massive jump, regardless of levels. So you tell yourself, let's keep the expectations low. Let's see what happens. But he worked some great at bats in the Yankees series, especially the first game. You look at what he did in the Astros series, looked awesome. Even the strikeouts weren't swinging strikeouts. I don't think he's had a swinging strikeout yet, except maybe the first game against the Yankees. But aside from that, like, it's been really good at bats. It's been pesky at bats. So I like what I'm seeing from Jacob Marcy so far. Hopefully that translates into a big 5-game series against the Braves, which we'll talk about the implications later. But this Braves team is very different from what we saw originally, and he has a good chance to really get it going here. And a lot of guys do. And one who I think we're all surprised is in the lineup today.
Yeah, very impressive in center as well. And it wasn't just Marcy in yesterday's game. All the rookies, Heriberto Hernandez went deep. Graham Pauly, who we'll get to in a second. What did
Eric Lagerman.
Eric Lagerman. No, that was the day before.
My bad.
Augustine had a hit as well out of the side fly. Of course, my guy Xavier Rivers had a 4-hit day. Eli, what do you take away from the offensive onslaught yesterday after a tough one? I said, I just will focus on the game itself first, and get to what Graham Pauly's done in the past few weeks after. But overall takes on a little bit of Jansen Junk as well. Why not? Right. And so I can't forget Calvin Faucher's incredible play in the 8th. That was awesome.
I actually want to start with Junk quickly because it did continue the trend where none of the 3 starters in this series were particularly good. I think you could say this is the weakest starting pitching the Marlins have gotten in a series in almost 2 months, where none of the 3 guys were good. At least Junk made it through 5 innings. It was better than Quantrill, but he was dancing around some trouble at times, uncharacteristic, where his control was, for a guy that has as good a sharpest command as any starting pitcher in baseball. Entering this game, this was on the very low end in that aspect of it. And that's why he didn't even get deeper into this one, is because he was kind of inefficient with his pitches. And there were a lot more non-competitive misses than we're used to seeing from him. They overcome it because I think you got to point out that they were facing a pitcher in Spencer Getty, who was coming off a 4-month layoff on the IL. And he did not look good. They had 6 hits in the first inning alone against Getty. You always love to see it when a hitter comes around to score on a hit or something, and then he immediately goes to the next batter up and starts whispering in his ear about the tells that he was seeing from that pitcher. The Marlins were definitely picking up some things on Getty. I don't know if you want to directly call it tipping his pitches, but something adjacent to that, which is why you're able to, usually that's what happens when you're able to pile up, I think, 11 of those hits against Getty alone. That is usually not a coincidence, especially if it's a guy with major league caliber stuff who had shown at times last year decent upside. They did their homework on this one. It's just another example where it's kind of hard to quantify, but that's one of those things you need to give credit to this coaching staff and the way they're preparing these hitters, because they definitely seemed to have an idea of where Getty was going to go, whether in terms of location or his pitch selection, and they took advantage of this one. As you noted, just a lot of the youngest hitters in the lineups were the ones that came through with the biggest hits here, including Heriberto Hernandez in this one. It was the fact that he's able to hit right-handed pitching as well as he is against lefties has been a huge surprise. He had one of those home runs, and then Pauly's came later on off the bullpen, Hector Neris. And well, the fact that Pauly's hitting any home runs at all, that's a pleasant surprise, because he just showed almost zero power potential the first couple months of the season. And that was kind of my biggest concern about him being a viable piece of this team moving forward. And there's been an uptick in that since he got back. So they needed to take this final game. It was eventful at the end. Let me see if I could probably grab the video real quick of Calvin Faucher making that crazy play at the very end that was incredible by him to save a run and get an out when they really needed it. And I'll just play it for people that didn't already see, with Fauché in the 8th inning, off balance, firing home, and just getting it barely in time to calm down that rally in the 8th inning. And they still needed help after that. They still needed one more play from X defensively, going back on a pop-up that would have tied the game if they didn't make that play. So it was more characteristic of the Marlins team that we've seen this year. That's kind of, you need to do well in a lot of different aspects to beat this Astros team. And unfortunately, they were only able to do that in the final game of the series, but one is better than none. So the vibes are definitely closer to what they were entering the series as they head out to Atlanta. They were able to partially redeem themselves for those first 2 games.
Yeah, and we're right back to you, Eli, about Grant Pauly, who we touched on, of course. Still playing fantastic defense, and now starting to figure it out with the bat. Him and Clayton both mentioned it post-game yesterday. A lot more confidence. I see Kevin nodding his head. Of course, Kevin, yes.
Yeah, Nate.
Ball better, striking out less. And like you said, hitting for a little bit of power. What do you think, since coming back from Jacksonville just a couple weeks ago, has been his biggest adjustment at the plate that's helping him out now?
Yeah, it's hard to put your finger on exactly one thing, but the more willingness to pull the ball has certainly helped. So that was 2 home runs so far since coming back, and a third that nearly went out in Milwaukee. I remember that one pretty clearly, where even when he clears the wall, it's not by a huge amount of distance, but especially when he's getting pitches inside to himself, the willingness to pull those instead of trying to inside out them the other way has made a big difference. I think early in the year he was consumed a little bit too much by trying to put the ball in play. And in fact, he's doing a better job at that since coming back. It's not only the power, it is putting the ball in play, and you roll it all together and it's a 123 WRC plus, 23% better than league average. That is, if he's able to be anywhere in that neighborhood moving forward, then that's extremely exciting. And there's not a lot of flukiness to it because he makes good swing decisions. His walk rate is pretty well up since coming back. I mean, that's been a trend for a lot of these young Marlins hitters this season, is walking more than we would have expected them to. So, being more selective, being more willing to pull the ball. We got to point out the defense. That's kind of what makes it really intriguing, because the bar for him offensively actually isn't all that high if he's continuing to be an elite defensive third baseman. He is playing elite defense since coming back. It's both several different types of plays where you see it. You definitely see it in the reaction time, and the fact that he doesn't really bungle too many balls that are hit right at him. And then you've seen it, the real highlights are the off-balance throws that he's able to make, especially the one in St. Louis where he was well in the foul territory. So his arm strength is all right. It's nothing special, but being accurate while making those off-balance throws shouldn't be taken for granted. It's been really exciting. On the days when he's not in the lineup against some lefties, Sanoja, that's when Sanoja has had his best offensive game. So overall, third base, this is the stretch of the season since Norby went down with his injury. This is the best production they've gotten from third base all year. And so that has kind of picked up the slack from it dipping in at other positions. This first base continues to be the difficult one to solve for this team. But outside of that, there really is not a single big hole on this team from the position player side. So, Pauly, this continues to be a really important evaluation period. I'm hoping to get more clarity on Norby's timeline soon, because I think we're talking a matter of weeks at this point before Norby is back. And I'm fascinated to see exactly how those guys mesh together. It was different earlier in the year where Norby kind of bumped Pauly all the way to the back of the bench. And I was kind of annoyed by that. I felt that they were wasting Pauly's time by having him just ride the bench. But it should be noted there was that AAA stint in between, and he mashed in AAA. I didn't think that was really going to translate all that directly to the big leagues. Even so, that does a lot for your confidence and for I think it still goes back to just a willingness to pull the ball in the air in a way that he wasn't doing as much early in the season.
Yeah, with Norby, he started taking, this was on Tuesday. Yes, Tuesday. Took like some small grounders with his glove. So he is starting to actually use the glove now. He wasn't before. He was only throwing and someone was catching the ball for him, but he seems to be a couple weeks out only. So it'll be interesting and we'll see. I mean, Pauly continues to play this well and continues to do what he's doing. Clearly they like Norby more because of the bat, but Pauly's defense is so good at third base. It's just like man, it's tough to go back to Norby after that, especially no offense to him. It's just a downgrade defensively completely. Like, Norby was not playing well defensively before the injury. And Pauly's just been so good there at third base all season. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I don't think there's a maybe platoon situation there that I'm not aware of, but we'll see. I mean, Pauly, he's been good. I've always been a fan of the glove. Think the bat was fine. They made some adjustments in AAA. I heard about those. Just some stance stuff, stuff with the bat that he did. So clearly the changes have worked, and they're allowing him to unlock the power a little bit more at the major league level.
I guess this pushes us back to the other corner in the infield. We've saw the lineup today, and we've I guess mentioned a little bit already so far. Now only 15 minutes into the stream. Kevin, where do we stand on the Eric Wagnerman, Troy Johnston situation at first base? I know you asked Clayton before the game on Tuesday what he's seen in Eric's recent at-bats. And, of course, he did go deep, and I believe a 7-2 ball game on Tuesday, which I guess bought him a couple more weeks at least. So where do you stand on that? And, I guess what's your thoughts on the whole Eric Wagnerman situation that's going on right now?
Let me start with this. Eric Wagnerman, good with the media, good dude, but that home run does not change my stance on what I think about Eric Wagnerman. Unfortunately, I just don't think he's a very good baseball player. Just no other way to say it. He's really struggled all season long. Got off to a good start, looked like the Marlins had found something, and after that, it's been really bad. He had not hit a home run since June 17th until that game. Like, it had been over a month. The whole month of July went on, and Eric Wagnerman did not hit a home run over a Major League Baseball fence, outfield fence, between the foul lines. And his defense isn't much better either, by the way. It's actually pretty bad, and he made some pretty costly errors for the Marlins already within this past month. Yeah, sure I do. And not saying Troy Johnston is the future at first base. By no means. He's 29, and who knows? And they're not even playing him at first base every day. I don't think he's playing first today. He's playing right field. But with that being said, I don't know. And we spoke about this Unfiltered. I don't think there's many better options in AAA than Eric Wagnerman. Maybe Davison. Like, at this point, you got nothing to lose. Let's see what you got. Jake Berry. Have him play a little bit of first base in AAA. See there. I mean, he's been hitting the ball well. But outside of that, I mean, unfortunately, just Eric Wagnerman's been struggling. And yes, I agree with Clayton. He's been elevating the ball more. But realistically, guys, as long as he's elevating the ball and it's going into a catcher into the glove of an outfielder, doesn't mean much. Batting average is still going down. Your OPS is still going down, and you're still not hitting a home run and not even getting a base hit. And his last base hit was RBI, was in that Cardinals series, which it was one. So, unfortunately, I don't know how much longer he's going to be here. I think Nate is right. He may have bought himself a couple more weeks, but if the struggles keep going, there genuinely needs to be a conversation of sending him down to AAA, giving him some time to work it out, and see what you got. And they're going to have to address this in the offseason because their first base depth is not very good. I don't think Nathan Martorell is very good. Davison's approach still not very great. He's still striking out a lot. And after that, I mean, you don't got much more like in this system. So I don't know. I guess for now, you got to keep him up here. You got to try it out. Clearly, if it gets to the point where this team is literally in position to make a wild card, get that third wild card spot, then you have to really consider your options and see what you do. But for now, he's just got to play it out. You got to see what happens. Oh, and I know Eli's going to mention this one. Heriberto Hernandez can't play first base. He played it in the minor leagues. He took reps there a couple times pre-game. I don't know why they haven't tried it because they made it clear like they will give guys opportunities to play all these positions. There's a reason why Liam Hicks is playing first. Get the bat in there. Heriberto Hernandez should be in this lineup today. Right. Troy should be playing first. Heriberto should be in right field in this lineup today, and I don't understand why.
Well, yeah, you finished off on what I think is more relevant is that I don't think there's a case for playing Wagman over Heriberto right now because the difference in production is night and day. Hernandez is the one of all these guys that we're talking about who has been awesome whenever he's gotten an opportunity offensively. And you think that regardless of they're both right-handed batters, like there's just no reason why Hernandez shouldn't be getting more playing time. I just don't see any circumstance where Wagman should be in the lineup over Hernandez. I think it is. It's been, I think, some undeserved I think the criticism, the fixation, I should say, on Wagman is going a little bit overboard, just considering that his playing time overall has dipped quite a bit. There was a like window end of June, early July, where he was still leading the team in plate appearances, where he was playing more than anybody else on the team. And so there was frustration there when he was still close to an everyday player, but he's been a part-time guy for a while now. If you actually look back at the past month or so, he's only started about half of the games, and he gets into a handful of others off the bench, but it's not like he's really dragging them down. It's not like I saw in our Discord server, some people were pointing out the differences between him and some guys like Tim Anderson or Aviciel Garcia, guys that were basically fixed into the everyday lineup until something bad happened. And the Marlins have been more flexible with Wagman. They gave him a very long leash, but they have at this point slowly recognized where his deficiencies are. And it's not like he's necessarily standing a daily reminder of a free agent signing that hasn't worked out. They have made some adjustments there. On that topic, I think your broader point is true that there is a lot of uncertainty in terms of what first base looks like moving forward. Where I think with Wagman, the key inflection point is going to be when Norby comes back from the IL. That is when somebody is going to get squeezed off this active roster. And the thing is, we've been through this so much this year. Usually when a guy comes back from an injury, somebody else gets hurt in the meantime. So maybe that problem will address itself and you won't actually get to make a true baseball decision. But when it comes time to do it, you would think that if everybody stays healthy between now and then Wagman would be the one that is most vulnerable to getting sent down.
Still, will they do it though? They probably won't do that. It'll probably be Troy or Derek Hill.
We'll see as it plays out. But with Wagman, we kind of underscored it. There's really nobody that has been less valuable just in terms of all he is his bat, and his bat has been very unproductive overall. At least those other guys, well, Hill in particular, he can help you out with speed and with defense, etc. You did gloss over Martorella, and I'm intrigued to see what Martorella does because this season in Jacksonville. There are some shades of what Jacob Marcy went through at this time last year, where Marcy had that really underwhelming season in Pensacola in what is a very pitcher-friendly environment. And all of a sudden he gets moved up at the end of the year. His production was solid the rest of the way, and there was some encouraging underlying stuff there. And then he breaks out this year. With Martorella, I don't think we should totally write him off yet, even though it's been a disappointing couple of years in Pensacola. Now he's in a change of scenery. He's gotten off to a relatively hot start in a small sample over there. So I am still watching him pretty carefully, at least to see if the bat itself can turn around. And I wouldn't be surprised if he actually enters spring training as one of their best options internally, even though that would not be an awesome situation to be in for the team. Even with that being said, you would think that this is going to be one of their priorities in terms of guys that could potentially address in free agency with their limited budget, that maybe they have just enough wiggle room to get some sort of veteran player that can handle first.
According to the Jumbo Shrimp, it's not Nate Martorella, it's Nathan. Everyone should know that. That was part of the roster.
He briefly tried on Nate, and it wasn't for him. He's I guess a little.
It's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
But that is top 10 FanGraphs prospect Nathan Martorella to you. I guess that leads us into I think it's our second of this season. Let's check up on the wild card race, shall we? The Marlins should have made some serious ground up earlier this week as the Mets got swept by the Cleveland Guardians. They got one hit yesterday. They were getting no hit, or I believe in 8 1/3 inning against the Guardians. Eli, check us up on this race right here, man. I know the Cardinals are still holding still, same with the Giants, but just give us what happened in the past 3 days and what the Marlins should be looking out for this weekend.
I really think the Mets are the most vulnerable team in terms of long term. They get the team that they can realistically catch among these wild card groups. They're the ones that they did make additions at the deadline, but mainly to their bullpen. And offensively, they just have not been the team they were supposed to be. You could date it back to early June. The Marlins have been a better offensive team than the Mets since the start of June. Most people would not imagine that being possible, this with all the names and all the experience that the Mets have. And yet it's the case. It hasn't been an especially deep lineup this year. Juan Soto had those few weeks where he went absolutely nuclear. I think he won NL Player of the Month in June. And then outside of that, he's been just okay. By his standards, less than okay, where he draws a lot of walks, but just not an elite offensive player this season, despite what he was as recently as last year, despite what he's been for most of his career. So they yeah, as a whole, that their rotation got off to that flaming hot start early in the year. They had the best rotation in baseball early on, and that has come back down to earth. They don't have an ace that really intimidates you on that entire staff. And it's really experienced rotation group, but one that doesn't miss a ton of bats relative to the rest of the league. So despite all the money that's been put into that, I feel like they're the most vulnerable coming down the stretch. And what's most important is that the Marlins have head-to-head games against them. Still 2 series, one in Queens and then one in Miami remaining on the schedule. That to me, even though the Padres have been in that third wild card spot for a decent stretch of the season, I always felt like the team that you can actually play directly is going to be the one that realistically can make up ground against. And I think they have a better chance at making up ground against the Mets than the Phillies, for example. Phillies now a couple games up of even where the Mets are. I think their deadline additions are more complementary in terms of what they needed. And I think they're a team that's trending up, whereas the Mets have been, as you see right there, 2-8 in their last 10. And then even I think their upcoming schedule isn't particularly forgiving for them either. Even so, I'm curious. I really think there's a chance that gap is even smaller by the time these teams play each other towards the end of this month.
And really quickly, I mean, you look at who's on, ahead of the Marlins here. You have the Giants, who sold. Cardinals sold. Reds, they bought. It wasn't a big buy from what I recall, but they bought. Marlins, you come into Atlanta, who's been playing really bad baseball and are not good. You're all of a sudden looking at yourself, take 3 out of 5, you're 59-59, and you're looking at yourself and maybe right behind Cincinnati or just ahead of St. Louis, and you're in a really good spot. So it's fun to do this. Again, I will stand by my take that I don't think the Marlins will make the playoffs, but it is fun to do this, to talk about this. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. But certainly Marlins are in a very favorable position right here with St. Louis and the Giants. Probably not going to be much better for the remainder of the season. The Giants have been playing really bad ever since getting Devers, so as TP Joseph notes. And the Braves are really bad. And the Marlins are probably going to finish third in the division, which is not what anyone had on their bingo cards at the start of the season.
Yeah, we'll get to how bad the Braves have been, honestly, since the last time the Marlins played them in June, real soon. But just quickly, the Marlins, their draft picks debuted earlier this week. We got Drew Farrow and Jupiter tearing it up, Ivor Arquette and Brandon Compton. Brandon Compton, who's walking already a lot in Beloit. Kevin, just take us through what you've seen for these guys for their first couple of games. And a little, I guess, Joey Weimer update, who had a mammoth debut in Jacksonville.
Yeah, I mean, Joey Weimer, 2 home runs in his Jumbo Shrimp debut. It was, I think, a 2-run homer and then a 3-run shot, and it was vice versa, but he did have base runners on when he hit the home run. Arquette looked pretty good in this debut, had a hit. I think every ball was put into play. He made some nice plays at shortstop. Compton, as you mentioned, walked 3 times yesterday. I think almost all of the guys in Jupiter got a hit. I know Emilio Barreras got a hit. Arroyo had a hit. Farrow has been awesome. Max Williams had a hit. So, yeah, Wilson Weber and Beloit had a hit as well. So, we'll see how it goes. I think so far so good. Can't complain. And I know Carson Laws, I think is his name, struck out the side in his debut. So, it looked pretty good there. And hopefully soon we get to see some more pitching prospects. I don't think we'll see too many, especially since it's an all-college draft. They literally just threw a couple months ago, went through a full season. So, I'm not sure how much they'll be used. But we'll see what happens. And so far, so good. Ivor Arquette back-to-back games with a hit. Hopefully makes that 3 in a row today.
Eli, anything you took away from these guys in their first look in Pro Bowl? As Joey Weimer takes flight.
Yeah, I just wanted to show this. This is the second homer that Weimer hit. He had 2 home runs, his very first 2 plate appearances in the organization, both of them against Chad Patrick, a guy that spent the first half of this year in the Brewers rotation in the big leagues and is a right-handed pitcher too. It's not an easy assignment. The thing that stood out most about Weimer's when they made that waiver claim is just the mysterious lack of pop, the fact that he was slugging in the low 300s in AAA each of the last 2 years for a guy that has plus raw power. And for it to immediately show up in this game has to be encouraging for this team. I still don't think you see him much in the big leagues this year, if at all. Maybe just a cup of coffee in September at some point if things continue to go really well. But you could, just to lay out the numbers, he came up 5 times last night. He reached base safely 5 times. He went 3 for 3 with a walk, 2 home runs, a hit by pitch. Absolutely perfect start for a waiver claim that I think some people kind of rolled their eyes at, just considering how deep his struggles had been, especially this year in the minors. Prior to that, yeah, when it comes to these draft picks, it's been a good start across the board for a lot of them. I echo what Kevin said. We don't really know how many of the pitchers are eventually going to play. We're still waiting on Canarella because he took a couple weeks later to sign, but I'm excited to see him and curious how that looks, just because there was big questions about his health coming out of the draft, and specifically his shoulder, that he was kind of playing this past season coming off shoulder surgery, and it really impacted his performance. So I'm fascinated to see exactly how he looks now physically, especially defensively when he gets into action. So hopefully he gets to play at least the last couple of weeks of the season in Jupiter, if not a taste of Beloit towards the very end.
And quickly with Weimer, like even if he does come up, like it'll be interesting. Obviously, but at that point you need to more or less know how many outfielders you want to have on this roster. They have a lot. And I think Weimer would be one of the better defensive guys too. Like he could play center pretty well. I think he put up like 5 outs above average, good DRS above the league average. You know, in that 2023 season with the Brewers, where he was up almost the entire season. So he can play all 3 spots well. He's a quick guy. So it's like the profile you dream of, but unfortunately, it just hasn't worked out. And ever since 2022, when he hit 21 home runs, before that in 21 had 27, it just really hasn't worked out for him. It's unfortunate. Hopefully with the Marlins, it's a little different, and it goes a little differently. Yeah, I mean, can't ask for more at this point. You got to set expectations low, but it could work out.
Yeah, and as Beefcat points out, that I don't know when he grew his hair out, and Kyle Stowers is a very rare shade of blonde hair, but I need a side by side of those two. They look identical, at least in that first look with Weimer. They both have the long beach blonde hair going. But that does lead us back to these Atlanta Braves. These are not your older brothers, Atlanta Braves, at least this season. Truist Park has been a house of horrors for the Marlins recently, but this is as good as opportunity as any, as they've had to go in there and take the series, especially in a big 5-game set like this one. Eli, these Braves have been hampered by injuries, just really a lot of bad production from the guys that they signed in these, notorious Alex Anthopoulos long deals. Where do you stand with these Braves, and what do you think's gone so horribly for them this season?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you see the recent performance right there, where very worst record in baseball. During that same stretch, the Marlins are the exact opposite of that. 25 wins, 12 losses. The Braves 12 and 25. I think they've only won maybe 2 series during that entire span, going back a month and a half. They've just been as consistently bad as the Marlins have been consistently good. During a lot of that stretch, they had Acuna, who actually is not going to be available for this part of the year. That hurt them early on in the season, the first month and a half or so before he came off the IL. But, I mean, they've played their worst baseball with Acuna leading off every single day and actually doing really well on his own. So I think that just speaks to how deeply flawed this team is. Offensively, just a lot of guys continuing what they did last year, if not a small step back. You remember in 2023, this was one of the best offenses in recent memory. Like that in 2023, everybody, Acuna won MVP, but even below him, up and down that lineup, all these guys it was incredible. It was really statistically one of the best offenses in baseball ever. And a lot of the same faces still around, and yet their production has slipped since then. So this offense has looked a lot closer to 2024 than it did the year before. And to me, the biggest thing is this pitching staff. So you could take a look at who's in their current rotation. Spencer Strider pitched yesterday and actually did pretty poorly in another Braves loss. The Marlins don't even have to worry about things clicking, because he's the only guy that is not going to be available in the super long series. It's going to be everybody else. I did not know Carlos Carrasco was a Brave. I had no idea that he was a Brave. I knew that he started the year with the Yankees, and I knew he was no longer with the Yankees. I had no idea what happened to him. He's going to start one of the games this weekend.
He's starting today.
He's starting today, yes. Bryce Elder, when he's on, he can be great occasionally. He's had a couple really good outings this year, but overall it's a 6 ERA. That kind of tells the story, where he's just more often than not, he's been really hittable. Eric Fetty is the one who, at least historically, has done well against the Marlins. When he was a struggling pitcher with the Nationals, he had this weird knack for doing well against the Marlins and nobody else. So that'll be an interesting test of that history continuing, when this year has been a big step back. He was a guy that everybody was excited about last season, a guy that apparently had gotten fixed by going over to Korea, and he pitched really well in 2024, but now this is kind of reverted back to essentially the same guy that he used to be before his breakout. So all things considered, that should be a relatively easy opponent. And Joey Wentz is a waiver wire guy who's been passed around to 3 different teams this season alone. He used to have some prospect pedigree, but he's never really had any substantial track record of big league performance. Even if he does well, it's usually 4 innings or so of good production. He's a guy that is on a short leash, even when he's getting outs. And so they'll have to, just like the Marlins, they'll have to call up somebody for one of those doubleheader games to fill things out. Maybe they do call up this Fuentes guy. That was one of the more perplexing roster moves of the entire year. Fuentes is the youngest player who's appeared in the big leagues this year. They call it a 20-year-old who was called up with very minimal AA experience. He got lit up for the Braves a few starts before getting sent back down. I have no idea. That was the panic move. I think that was kind of the indication that things were going badly, is when they felt they needed to rush him up. Even by Brave standards, this was a totally ill-advised decision to call him up. And I don't even have to look at the numbers. I vaguely remember it was like an ERA either in the 9s or in the 10s over the course of several starts that he made. So they're not even – he's not ready, plain and simple. To draw your attention to the guys that are unavailable, just as a refresher of the guys that were supposed to be in the rotation, Chris Sale, the reigning Cy Young Award winner, like, he's facing live batters now, so he'll be back before the end of the year, but it's way too little too late because of a freak injury that I believe he suffered on a fielding play, of all things, a couple months ago. Spencer Schwellenbach was having an awesome year, even better than he had been last season, and he's now been out with an elbow injury. It's unclear if he'll return at all. Reynaldo Lopez was an all-star last season, and he got hurt at the very beginning of the year as well. There's few teams that have lost as many high caliber players as the Braves. I mean, overall, the total number of players on the IL isn't all that out of the ordinary, but it's so many of their very best players that are out at the same time. And even though we see across other teams, there's an ability, it's not a death sentence to lose your best players simultaneously like this, but in their cases, you could just see the vibes are awful, uncharacteristically awful for this Braves team that has continuity from a leadership perspective, that has a lot of other continuity among the guys that are healthy on their roster. But for whatever reason, it's just not worked. And for them, they're a team that didn't even do that much at the deadline. So I think the Marlins have to be relieved about that. They didn't really take any steps to tidy things up for 2026 in terms of adding more prospect depth. They weren't even able to trade Marcell Ozuna. I want to talk about him at the very end of the show as well. Like, Ozuna is one of their few pending free agents that has been all right this year, even if it's a lot less than his usual standards. And they weren't even able to trade him because he has a no trade clause, being a guy due to his 10-5 rights. They didn't really get much at the deadline in order to prepare for the future. So they seem to be in large part looking to run it back next season for a team that people had high hopes for entering this season, but you got to respond to what's actually going on. And it's been, I think, bar none, unequivocally the most disappointing team in baseball this season.
Didier Fuentes with an ERA of 13.85 in 3 starts.
I gave him too
And
much.
he got lit up by the Marlins. So, yeah, this is a really bad team. Like, have you seen their bench? Their bench has Luke Williams and Sandy Leon on it. Like, that's everything that you need to know. But, hey, look, on the bright side, Drake Baldwin competing with Agustin Ramirez for Rookie of the Year. So that'll be an interesting weekend here. I want to say Eli White has been like pretty decent. I don't get a home run. Yeah, he's been just about league average. He's been fine. I remember he got traded to the Braves in that Angels trade there was some sort of trade there. Sean Murphy's been fine. Matt Olson was an all-star. So they still have some guys, but this is a very good opportunity for the Marlins. Like, as good as it ever will get for them to go into Truist Field and dominate the Braves. So saying that probably won't happen, but who knows? I mean, this is not a good Braves team. Raisel Iglesias hasn't been himself this season. I didn't even know this, but Tyler Kinley's now on the Braves, former Marlin. A lot of former Marlins. Dylan Lee, Tyler Kinley, Ozuna, Leon, Luke Williams. Yeah, this is not a good Braves team. A lot of 2021 Marlins that did not pan out.
That should tell you something. I just put you on the spot both real quick. This is the biggest Marlins series since fill in the blank. I just would go to you, Eli, first.
Yeah, it has to be. So I think it's the biggest one this season for sure. I feel like the Yankees series was bigger, in my opinion, the one that they just had. From considering it was fresh after the deadline, and there was naturally there's going to be a bigger microscope on the team when that happens. There are going to be more people, not just in the stands, but people actually watching from afar. I feel like the Yankees series was bigger because you can make the argument this would be if the Braves were actually competing with them in the race whatsoever, and they're not. Even though they're in the same league in the same division, they're so out of it. It's basically like playing an American League team. There's just no connection whatsoever in terms of making it to the playoffs. But I'd say it's the second biggest series of the season, and therefore the second biggest since 2023.
Kevin?
Yeah, I would have to agree. Although this one is pretty close up there. I mean, you think about it, 5 games against a really bad team. If you win this series, if you take even 4 out of 5, like I believe you're a game over 500, like for the first time since April 14. Like you're looking at yourself, you sling yourself more than back into the wild card race. You would assume if you take 4 out of 5 or 3 out of 5, you win the series, that Sandy pitched well, Yuri pitched well, whoever he called up, which by the way, it really does look like it'll be Ryan Gusto who's going to get this call up, pitched well. Like you had a good series against what was once your big brother, or yeah, I mean, there's no other way to put it. Like this Braves team has dominated the Marlins for years.
Yeah,
so
that is what this is on the side for anybody that's
yes, there it is.
Record with the Braves. Currently, the Marlins have that 3-2 edge entering the series. If you look back every single year, you have to go back a full decade to 2014 is the last time that the Marlins had a winning record against the Braves head-to-head in a season. Otherwise, most of those years, not only the Braves winning, but the Braves winning pretty convincingly as recently as last year, even in 2023. As much as things went right for the Marlins that year, they only went 4-9 against Atlanta. So this is the first time. It even predates the Acuna Snitker era. You have to go back several years before that for the last time the Marlins won a season series. If they win 4 in this one, it clinches the season series. And as Kevin said, if they win 4, then they'll come out of the series above 500. I don't think anybody's going to dare to dream about a 5-game sweep, especially when there's a doubleheader in the middle. That just doesn't happen very often, no matter how big the gap is between the quality of these games. But there is an expectation that the Marlins should win this one, just based on how consistently good they've been, how consistently bad the Braves have been, and the mismatches especially on the starting pitching front.
Man, 2018 and 2019, you forget about it. But when Jose Urena hit Acuna on that first pitch of the game, and then what happened the year after, Kevin said it the best. That is the most big brother, little brother thing I've ever seen in baseball. That is bizarre to look at. I guess we'll go to lineups now. You want to talk about Marcell Ozuna live, but we'll start on the Marlins side. Kevin, talk to me. We already talked about Wagman. What else stands out to you about this Marlins lineup for game 1 out of 5 at Truist?
Literally just that. The fact that Eric Wagman is in the lineup is what stands out to me. But no, I mean, seriously, it's a fun lineup. Like from 1 to 9, it's a good lineup, except Eric Wagman. It's a good lineup. Like Liam Hicks has struggled a little bit recently, but I think he'll turn it around. This is a good opportunity to do it. Like Jacob Marcy adding the speed towards the middle to the bottom of that lineup. Troy, hopefully he gets it going. I think we're all rooting for him big time to get it going. Good opportunity at Truist Field. Paulie going back home, playing in front of his hometown crowd or whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, and I think it's really going under the radar. Like Xavier Edwards has been awesome, this second half of the season. Getting on base, causing havoc in the base paths. He's been fun. Augustin Ramirez continues to be Augustin Ramirez. I think he's striking out a little bit more than he should. And recently it feels like it's been a lot of hit or miss for Augustin. Like, yeah, he'll have a big game where he hits the 2 home runs and we're really back on Augustin Ramirez. And then there is, he strikes out 3 times and he doesn't do much. And yeah, it's been a lot of on and off with him recently, but man, the numbers suggest differently. And he's putting the ball in the play a lot, and when he does, it's a loud, out or a loud hit. So, yeah, and recently Otto Lopez, I believe, I want to say he's been slumping a little bit. So, yeah, this is really hopefully a get right series for the Marlins.
Now, he did gloss over Hicks a little bit. I do want to point that out, just to be fair. Like he's in a pretty extended slump in the power department. His on base has been really consistent all season long. in a way that is exactly as advertised when he was coming out of the Rule 5 draft. That's one thing that's translated perfectly is the quality of his at-bats and general contact ability, but he is not slugging whatsoever. I mean, we could go back. I don't think he's hit a home run in a long time, but even the doubles have dried up with him as well, where it's only a couple extra base hits going back to the start of July with Hicks in a way that has dragged down his overall numbers. He's in danger of dipping below a 100 WRC plus for the first time basically all season pretty soon if he has a shaky weekend right here. Now, some of that may be related to the catching workload going up. He'll have to catch several games in this series as well. I think physically that may be affecting him because he's been getting more playing time than I think people would have reasonably expected for a Rule 5 player. That has to be going into it. I'm not going to be too harsh in terms of what it means long term, but it is a curious decision that he's still batting in the cleanup spot. I think we mentioned on the previous stream that there is now a lot of continuity in this lineup. When they're facing a right-handed pitcher, it's going to be those 6 guys in that order moving forward, it seems like, unless they eventually make an adjustment on Hicks and like acknowledge the fact that he's not hitting for any power, that he's just giving you singles and walks for the time being. And it's a lot of walks and really not a ton of singles lately with him. So that's something that I'm watching down the stretch with Hicks, and whether that affects where exactly they put him in the lineup. They're going to want to give him a lot of playing time no matter what down the stretch to evaluate him. But yeah, he goes under the radar. Wagman absorbs a lot of the arrows that people are throwing at this team for lineup construction. Meanwhile, Dane Myers has been just as bad as Wagman over the same stretch. We've touched on that, but not quite as much. And he's lost playing time as a result. Whereas Hicks, his playing times remain steady, but at the same time, the missing power component makes him a weird fit for the middle of the lineup.
But he's also not striking out as much. He's putting the ball in the play a lot more, and I think the results are a bit more encouraging rather than like unfortunately Dane and Wagman. Well, Dane's been striking out a lot. He had a 3 strikeout game the other day, struck out the other on Tuesday in the pinch hit situation. Yeah, it's not been good for him, unfortunately. But yeah, Hicks, I think it's a little more encouraging. Like the amount of times he's putting the ball in the play. Like, look, he's walking 10% of the. Is it him? Yeah, he is. He's walking 10% of the time. He's getting on base still, and I'm not too worried about him. I think he'll get it worked out. Like the fact that he's doing this without playing AAA baseball is impressive to begin with. Like you would have told yourself, if you would have told yourself Liam Hicks would still be on the Marlins roster by this time, you'd be surprised.
Yeah, and just like you said, it feels like he's still hitting the ball well. It's just his edge Vilas and the powers aren't there, because I feel like even yesterday he hit a ball really well directly at, I believe, the center fielder. So I think his balls are just sitting up in the air a little bit too long. Once he gets that cracked down, I think Liam Hicks will be all right. Yes, that brings us over to the Braves side. Kevin touched on Augustine a little bit, but Eli, where do you stand on the whole Rookie of the Year debate? I know MLB, after the Marlins swept the Yankees, put out a post praising Augustine, saying how he's first in so many categories between NL rookie hitters. But between guys like Drake Baldwin, who's opposite him today, how would you assess Augustine in this race?
Yeah, it's tricky because there's a big playing time advantage in Augustine's favor, and the counting stats favor him as well. The thing is, Baldwin has an edge both in the actual rate production by a big margin and in the defensive side as well. He's been more or less an average defensive catcher, and the gap between average defense and Augustine defense is pretty big. So that's an element to it too. And that's why in terms of wins above replacement, there's a very big gap in Baldwin's favor. The thing is, like, there's still not a clear. Baldwin's playing time has been pretty consistent, meaning that it's been a lot less than everyday playing time. And it's not really going to change because they're stuck with Ozuna, at least for the time being. Maybe they're not permanently stuck with him, but for the moment, it's splitting catching reps between Baldwin and Murphy, and it's splitting DH reps between Baldwin and Ozuna, but yet all together, and it's still a lot less than everyday playing time for him. And he has gradually slipped off. He did get off to an amazing start offensively in a limited sample, and now he's all the way down to about an 800 OPS, which is good and significantly better than Augustine, but it's a gap that could close, especially if Baldwin continues to slip gradually. Like his power has kind of faded as the year has gone on, but it still puts together really great quality at bats, and the underlying numbers totally support it. So I don't think he's going to fall off a cliff at the very end. Just a matter of whether it's a classic argument between quantity and quality. and a guy in Augustine that still has the potential to turn it on as this year gets winding down. So it's not necessarily totally determined that Baldwin is going to have as much of a gap as he does in the rate stats. I did want to talk about Ozuna just because the fascinating year he's had. You see the bright red next to his walk rate. He is the second highest walk rate in baseball behind Soto. That's it. Soto is the only player drawing more walks than Ozuna. At the same time, he has like his lowest slugging percentage in 10 years for a fully healthy season. That for a guy that was one of the elite power hitters and overall hitters in baseball last year, it's been such a weird year. Like it's not a surprise that somebody in their mid 30s would suddenly drop off quite a bit. It's just that the fact that his walk rate has skyrocketed up the way that it has is an interesting adjustment at this stage of his career. So I mentioned before, he kind of had a no trade clause just because he's been with the Braves now for over 5 years. He's been in the big leagues for over 10 years. Players in that position automatically get no trade protection. And I didn't follow the rumors closely to know how much interest there was in him from other teams. It's just that I thought they would do everything possible to convince him to waive that clause and get traded to open up more playing time for Baldwin down the stretch. It surprised me that they didn't do that. So he's a guy that maybe if he plays well the next couple of weeks, then they put him on waivers, and another team might be willing to pick up the remaining couple million of his salary for a boost down the stretch, just as a pure salary dump. Maybe that happens. But it did surprise me that they didn't find a fit for him because it puts Baldwin in that awkward spot where it's been successful rookie year, but he probably could develop more if he just played a little bit more, and that opening hasn't really been there.
Yeah, and elsewhere in this Braves lineup, one guy that really sits out with how much blue, not Nick Allen, who we all know is a notoriously bad hitter, Ozzy Albies, who has torched the Marlins for plenty of years. Kevin, where do you stand on Ozzy Albies, man? I mean, that guy has been the forefront of this Braves lineup, him and Acuna forever, and even guys like Michael Harris, who the Braves also went to a long-term extension, have just been poor this year, and I guess that's a key card to why this Braves team has been bad along with the injuries. So, yeah, what's going wrong with these two, and can we expect some type of bounce back later this season, or I guess into 2026?
It's weird because he's someone who since 2021 just really hasn't put the ball in play much. It's like under the league average BABIP. In this year, it's as low as it gets, 251 BABIP, but he's walking quite a bit, 9.4% of the time, not striking out a lot. But man, I don't know. Maybe he just was a little bit lucky. I don't know. It's been a weird season for Ozzy Albies because clearly there is regression from one year to the other. He still has value defensively at second base, but outside of that, it's been a struggle for him. He's been so good for so many years, and when the Braves signed into that deal, I mean, everyone thought like they robbed him essentially. They robbed him. Like he could have made so much more at the time. You know, 2021, 30 home runs, 2018, 24, 2019, 24 home runs. Like he was so good, and fortunately, just hasn't panned out. And this is the third lowest strikeout percentage of his career, and somehow still just it hasn't panned out. And this is coming off 96 WRC plus season in 2024 where he only played 99 games, albeit, but still like similar amount of plate appearances right now and just not working out. He's a guy who seems like just not putting the ball in play has really hurt him, and it's come to bite him from the last couple of years.
Yeah. Eli, do you have anything to add about these two? And I guess just the long-term philosophy that Alex Anthopoulos has done for so long. Obviously, you don't want to jump to any conclusions about what he's just one bad year about what the Braves are doing. But all these long-term deals maybe just generated, compliance with mediocrity because Michael Harris had one really good season, obviously our rookie of the year, and then into that big deal and has really fallen off. So where do you stand on that whole philosophy of inking these young guys? We just saw it yesterday with Roman Anthony to these big deals when they're young.
Yeah, overall, I think it's still the right approach. The only one that to this point has proven to be an amazing value has been the Acuna one, and that was kind of the first one in this whole sequence when it was just coming off of his rookie year, if I remember correctly, that they made that long-term commitment. And with Harris, to give him credit, I know it's the same thing that Colin did, is that he was basically the worst qualified hitter in baseball as of maybe a month ago or so. And since then, he's been great. So that is evened out a little bit, not fully, but it's gotten to a level where I think that is still going to be a very efficient deal moving forward and still has a bunch of years still to go on it. So I think that one is going to work out okay. And the Olsen one, I guess he was another one that got a big deal. And for the for the most part, that's been fine, largely because Olsen is never hurt. He's the guy that is, I think he's led the majors in games played ever since he joined the Braves. And even before that, he was super durable. So that one is more about volume than quality, but the quality's been pretty good too, all things considered, with him. So I think it's been the right approach to build that way. A lot of their demise this year has come down to those pitching injuries. To be fair, it also, as referenced before, it's because it looked like everything was going perfectly 2 years ago offensively. It looks like they'd put together and locked up a special offensive core. And aside from Acuna, everybody else, there's a huge drop off from Acuna to the next best hitter on this team so far. So I don't know if that's necessarily a problem in the decision-making process. They might have to just overhaul the coaching staff and the preparation process to kind of, they might be suddenly in the situation where they have to catch up to teams like the Marlins of all teams and others in terms of employing technology in training in ways that get the best out of their hitters. I think that's a bigger question for a team that looked like it had the perfect setup on the position player side. And now all of a sudden guys are, for the most part, getting worse than they used to be, and certainly not getting better. So I think starting with Snitker, the speculation, even entering this year, is that it would be his last season of at this particular role with the organization. So we'll see how exactly they shake up that coaching staff and whether or not it pays some of the dividends that the Marlins have seen. The Marlins brought back a lot of the same players they already had last year, picked up a lot of guys with no experience, and they've just been better than expected. So the Braves have that same trick up their sleeves while also having a payroll that's like 2.5 or 3 times as high than their team that could immediately bounce back to being a World Series contender.
Yeah. Go ahead, Devin.
No, I was going to say Brock Vredenberg actually signed with the team. He's going to the Phillies
already.
They used the wrong photo. They used Kemp Alderman's photo, but it's okay.
Oh no,
it is Brock Vredenberg.
I see that. I see that. Very, very interesting. I think they used. Oh my! We'll talk about.
They used one from the official news.
Yeah. We'll talk about that off stream. But good luck to Brock Vredenberg in Philly.
I am shocked to hear that. Just we'll quickly go into the pitching matchups in this interesting 5-game set. I just feel like, what are you expecting to see out of Ryan Gusto, who we're looking forward to seeing make that one of the doubleheader starts on Saturday? I forgot it's game 1 or game 2, but first look, what should be him in a Marlins uniform?
Yeah, it's big. This is what we think it's shaping up to be with Gusto in game 1 of that doubleheader, unless they do something else. But that is the expectation that Gusto is essentially fully rested and available for that game. I don't know how much they could have changed in such a short time span about him. I think he's somebody where you trust him to be able to go two times through a lineup and throw strikes for the most part. But I don't think we're going to learn a ton about him. And I think the likely scenario is whether it's him or somebody else that gets called up, they would immediately get sent back down after that doubleheader. So with me, I'm just looking at the guys, especially we're always going to be focused on Sandy down the stretch of this season to see if he really turns the corner. I was pretty vocal about that I just didn't think he really did at any point this year fully get back to being a reliable top of the rotation sort of guy. So every single start the rest of the way, it's going to be a big step in terms of assessing where he realistically is and whether they want to keep him for 2026 and beyond. So even he's faced the Braves plenty of times. He has familiarity with a lot of these hitters, and he's facing them at a time where they're more vulnerable than usual. So this hopefully is a situation where Sandy continues to pound the zone with the confidence that he's recently had, but he's able to get better results. I'm going to be, of all these guys, I'm going to be delighted to watch Yuri and Eddie because they've been so consistently great, but I'm going to be most focused on how Sandy does to sort of bounce back.
Yeah, and with that, let's go and do our favorite segment, prediction time.
Prediction time.
This is prediction time.
I think we're going to win a lot of games, a lot more games than you think we're going to win this year.
Okay. That's our look. The leaderboard has not changed very much because last series, almost everybody was expecting the Marlins to keep on rolling and win a series. Only 4 people total picked up any points of any kind. Carlos Correa, the MVP. So yeah, things are pretty much the way that they were before, but this is a unique prediction time. 5 gamers. So there's no split, best of 5. How many games the Marlins are going to win out of those 5? Who will be the series MVP? Still a few minutes left for our super subs to leave their predictions on fishonfirst.com if you'd like to be involved in this leaderboard and tracking your results down the stretch of this season. Let me get the music going, and I guess we can start with Kevin, as we often do.
Did not think I would be in the top 5 of the leaderboard this season, to be honest with you. But since I am, I have to start going a little bit bold to make some strides to finish first. So I'm going to go with the Marlins taking 4 out of 5 against the Atlanta Braves. And I will go with Graham Pauley as my series MVP. Feeling good, hometown kid. Let's hope it works.
I'll bring up myself in the middle here. I have the Marlins winning 3 out of 5 in this series. It's still pretty good. I mean, I don't like to copy the guy that just went before me, but why not? Graham Pauley, I think he's going to be in the lineup for 4 of these games or so. So a lot of opportunities to do damage, and this is sort of a hometown series for him, the Georgia native. So I think he's going to continue to be really good and come up in situations where he can drive in runs from guys further up in the lineup that get on base for him. So the Marlins inch back. This would lead them exactly as a 500 team coming out of Atlanta and onto the more challenging aspects of their schedule still to go. Mr. Host, your predictions.
Yeah, I'm with both of you. I think the Marlins will take 3 out of 5 this set. And there was a lot of discussion for Augustin Ramirez potentially in the home run derby in Atlanta. He didn't get the invite, but I think this series is going to hit a couple out. I'm doing at least 2, that short fence in left field. Big rookie of the year implications against Drake Baldwin. He's going to come through for this Marlins team a lot. Miami's going to walk out of here, beating the Braves, taking down their nemesis, and it's going to be a fun one. Buckle up.
All righty.
All right. That is our show. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Another great turnout. Like I just said, buckle up for this 5-game set. I want to say it's the first 5-game set since 2020, right? And there should be no comparison there, right? Yeah, so I think if it was the last one against Philly, that big 7-gamer, I could be wrong there, but the Marlins came out on the right side of that one, so let's hope for the same this time around. I am Nate for Eli, for Kevin. Thank you guys for tuning in once again, and as always, go Fish.
Fish on First Live is presented by About the Fans. We've partnered with them this season on a brand new merchandise collection featuring t-shirts, polos, hats, and other accessories that Marlins fans will absolutely love. Head on over to aboutthefans.com to shop the FOF collection. Use our special coupon code FOF10 to save 10% off your order. Enter code FOF10 at checkout to save 10% and continue supporting what we do over here.